Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. Today, I'm as happy as I can possibly be to welcome Dr. Michael Hersh.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's unbelievable to be here sitting with you right now and thinking that a year ago, we didn't even know each other. This is really incredible. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to be here with you.
Okay, you're very welcome. So Michael is a full-time practicing gastroenterologist who also specializes in supporting mid-career male physicians through his coaching business, Better Physician Life Coaching. Michael is a certified life coach, and he has received additional training in trauma-informed coaching. And as you'll discover during our conversation, he's an all-around great guy.
Thank you. That's such a great introduction. Thank you.
Oh, good. In this episode, we'll be answering some personal questions our audience might have about coaching and perhaps answering some questions they didn't even know they had. So usually I start by just saying how I connected with my guest initially. And this time I'm going to share the link to our Kevin MD podcast where we talk about that in the show notes, and the article that I did about coaching and you. I'll put that in the show notes. So what I thought I would do here is I went back and I found the very first communication that I had with you, and it was a Facebook message, and that was December 21st of last year. So I'm just going to read that. I said, congratulations on your year of blogging. I had sent this to Better Physician Life Coaching. Your link showed up on my Facebook feed last March. I clicked on it and have appreciated every post since. I went back and read them all and have used at least a couple. What is water? And stop shitting all over yourself as devotions during my weekly church's women's fellowship meetings, as they have broad appeal. You've also introduced me to new to me music artists such as Tori Amos, right? And along with Crucify, I've listened to Winter many times. So you can tell where my brain was then. Crucify and Winter, and I didn't get past that. Thank you for making your blog public, and not only to your target audience of physicians. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm grateful to be able to access it. I look forward to reading every Wednesday. Best of luck to you, warmly, Kim Downey. And of course, you sent me the nicest message back, and I thought I would let you take it from here because I'm usually the one to tell the story. So,
Well, I had I committed to myself that I was going to write a blog post a week for a year. And this was very uncomfortable for me as a physician, as a relatively private person, to be writing down all of these personal thoughts and then just sending them out onto the internet and putting them on Facebook, and not really knowing that anybody was reading them or paying attention to them. I would get some comments from friends or my family, but that was it. And so I got this message in my inbox, and I am not somebody, I would say pre-coaching Michael was not somebody who would respond to internet messages from relative strangers. And it was such a warm, heartfelt message. And I just was so elated that somebody out there was actually reading these blog posts that I was putting so much time, effort, and energy into. And I think we kind of communicated back and forth, and then we were just like, oh, let's just set up a time that we can chat. And I think there was just an immediate. I think we talked for like an hour, which is also, by the way, not something I would have done pre-coaching.
oh, okay.
And then we just kept going, and I think I feel so blessed that you took the opportunity, the vulnerability to reach out to me and just to say like, hey, I've been reading your stuff and it really has meant something to me. And the fact that you like my music also didn't hurt. And I think everything just kind of blossomed from there. And I think it's been a really amazing year. And again, I just want to say, to see you here with your own show, celebrating physicians, it's really been an amazing transition for me to watch. And so congratulations to you again.
Well, thank you, Michael. And as I was thinking about our episode today, a couple words came up for me, connectivity and vulnerability. And you've already said vulnerability and, of course, us connecting with each other. So that that might be like a theme through our discussion today. So I was wondering what you would most like our audience to know about you as we begin our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just kind of touched on it a little bit, which was that I think you and I have become very comfortable talking about coaching. And so some people might, hear that and think that you and I both were just immediate converts and thinking that coaching was just this thing that just resonated with us immediately. And I would say that couldn't be further from the truth. I've spoken many times before that I am a skeptic at heart. I am a born and bred New Yorker who just believes wholeheartedly that I never want to be taken advantage of. And when I first heard about coaching, my initial thought was that's for suckers, right? Like this is, and that also couldn't have been further from the truth. I think the person that I am today was always there. I needed coaching to be able to put it out there. So when I was talking about all the things that I never would have done, like writing these blog posts for a year and communicating with people that I had never met before and meeting with them and talking to them and starting a podcast, all of these things are things that I never would have done. And at the same time, they were all inside of me. I just needed a way to believe that I could do all of those things. And that's what coaching has been for me.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And as you know, I didn't plan on coaching either, right? Especially with you, since your specialty is mid-career male physicians. I was just really sad about my doctor that died, and I had asked you if you'd listen, and that's how we started. And that one session helped me so much. And, then we continued communicating. And then I had said I didn't want to be taking advantage of you because you were helping me with all of the things, right? And then we talked about coaching, and then we did it, and it has been very helpful. So yeah, like you, I came in through the back door, but when we're both blessed for it, right?
For sure.
Okay, so let's see. So our first topic is, I know that I've told you that I appreciate on podcasts when people share personal examples. So I'm going to start out by sharing one as we lead into this. And I was going to quickly share for our audience that I've had 3 separate cancer surgeries, radiation treatments recently over a 2-year period. And when I added up all the doctors I saw during that time, it totaled 37. I told you 33, but I had forgotten about the anesthesiologists. But I also recently read that they say if we do our job right, you do forget about us. So I guess that's okay. And I was curious as to the breakdown, so I just tallied it up. And I saw 7 radiologists, 4 primary care doctors, 4 anesthesiologists, 3 surgeons, 3 ENTs, 2 nephrologists, gynecologists, and medical oncologists, and then 1 each endocrinologist, dermatologist, dentist, gastroenterologist, ophthalmologist, orthopedist, cardiologist, rheumatologist, neurologist, and an ER doctor specialty. I added that because it sounds like a partridge in a pear tree, because that's what it feels like, more than 12 days of doctors, right? But I've had all kinds of experiences during physician visits, all during the pandemic, ranging from what I'd describe it as wonderful to visits I perceived as traumatic. So it wasn't all wonderful. And I'm sharing this level of detail precisely to maintain physician anonymity, because I'm not calling anyone out. And I also understand that the physicians with whom I had the poorest experiences may be struggling or were struggling, and I wish all of them well. So that said, something you successfully coached me on was ruminating, right? And I was perseverating on some things related to one or more physicians, and I just could not move forward. And I remember one day during a walk, I asked myself, like, what did I used to think about before everything happened? And I couldn't even remember. Like, it just ruminating about things just consumed my thoughts unless I was in the moment, had to think about something else, right? But after our coaching session that day, just like that, I stopped ruminating about something in particular. So I was just wondering, how did you do that? And this is the lead into if you'd like to speak to coaching and its merits for physicians.
Yeah, well, I think, we talk a lot about, what are the differences of coaching versus therapy. And I think if we're being honest, there is some overlap between the two. But I think when we're talking about when you were talking about ruminating, we were more kind of focused on like, what do you want? And I think that that is the beauty of coaching is this how you want to be spending your time, right? We can always spend our time looking backwards and wondering if we had done things differently, how things could have been different, if we had made different choices, the regrets of yesterday, or we can start committing to being, here in the present moment. And then what do we want? Like, what do we want to be thinking about? Right. So you were thinking about like, what did I used to think about? And you couldn't even remember. And I think shifting to like, where do I want to be focusing my time, effort, and energy? Right. So if you're spinning your wheels thinking about yesterday, you cannot be making plans for tomorrow. And for you, if you were still thinking about all of those decisions and the things that had passed, we wouldn't be sitting here today recording your podcast and it's really how do we want to focus our energy and our mental space, because there's only so much mental bandwidth we all have. And so what do you want to be using it for?
Right. And that's great. And it really helped me. So thanks again. Something else I thought is, as I've told you, you know that I didn't used to be an emotional person, that I'd go more than a year without crying, only if someone I love died, something happened to kids, or if I watched a sad movie, which I try not to do. And since everything happened, I don't even go a week without getting a little teary. And you know that it bothers me because it's such a difference from my prior typical state, where for other people, I'd say, hey, you get to feel all the feelings, right? I've learned that from you. But it seems like for me, I don't really like it. And during an early coaching session, I'd think, about you. I'm like, oh my God, this poor guy just had a long day or a long week at work. He's finally home and now he's listening to a blubbering middle-aged woman. And then I'd feel even a little worse. And of course, you did not make me feel that way. And as a matter of fact, you asked, what's wrong with being an emotional person? And you listen to anything I tell you without judgment. You just sit there with your kind eyes and you listen to me. And as we know, coaching is a female dominated industry, and there's a need for male physicians to explore this work, specifically related to exploring emotions, and how that can be especially difficult for men. And when we talk about like doing the work, that's where some or much of the work really is. So I thought you could speak to that.
Yeah. So all incredible points. And just to kind of reiterate what you were saying, like, we have to feel our feelings, right? You and I have talked a lot about the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And when you tell yourself, I was not an emotional person, maybe you were, and maybe you just didn't let yourself be. And I agree with the question that I asked you all those months ago. What's wrong with being an emotional person? What's wrong with feeling all of the things that we all feel? Feelings get us literally everything we want in life, right? Everything that you have is because you had a feeling or you had a thought about what that feeling was going to be when you had it, right? And so just embracing the fact that having a feeling is normal and then letting yourself feel it is transformative in and of itself. And then, yes, I think, 50% of physicians are men. And so I found coaching because I joined a coaching program. I was suffering through all my own stuff, my own burnout, my own, I have everything in my life that I always wanted, and I'm still not happy. What is going on here? And so I joined a coaching program, and it was phenomenal. And what I noticed is that there were not a ton of male physician coaches. There were a bunch, but they were probably, it was definitely the minority. And so when I saw the impact, I just was like, there needs to be more male physicians out there talking about this thing. Because the truth was, a lot of the female physician coaches out there really only wanted to coach other female physicians. And so, as you've alluded to, I coach all physicians, right? I have female physician clients and male physician clients and non-physician clients. And it is so important first to just normalize the whole feelings aspect of things. And I think this is particularly important, like you were just saying, for male physicians. So men in general are socialized to dissociate from our emotions, right? This is very early in life. Toughen up. You don't have to feel these things. You don't get to cry, right? Like, you just have to push through it. And there is a power in, number one, normalizing the fact that we all have feelings, we all get to feel them, and recognizing that for men, this can be incredibly uncomfortable. And it was for me. I will never forget the first time one of my female physician coaches asked me where I felt a feeling in my body and what was the feeling. And I was like, what are you talking about? She could have been speaking another language. And, she pulled out I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before, a feelings wheel. Have you seen
You've
one of
shared
those?
it with
Yes.
me, and I've shared it
Oh,
with
yeah,
other
I did.
people
Yeah.
since then. Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, all these feelings. I used to think that I could feel like 4 or 5 different things. And then I realized, like, oh my goodness, look at all of these things that we can feel. And so I think just raising awareness around feelings, and the fact that for men and for male physicians, like, men are trained to dissociate from our emotions, but physicians, oh my goodness, we are taught, like, whatever just happened in room 1, you need to put that behind you, put a smile on your face, and head over to room 2. We're never taught to process what happened in room 1, or figure out, like, how am I carrying that with me through the rest of my day and the rest of my life. And so for me, that's what coaching did, was kind of teach me, like, it's okay to have all of these feelings. It's okay to lean into them. It's okay that it's going to feel uncomfortable, and everything you want is on the other side of that uncomfortable feeling.
Right. And also recognizing that during a coaching session that it's okay to express those feelings, right? And especially for men. And I'm wondering if sometimes that's one of their fears underlying trying coaching in the beginning, is just being afraid of being vulnerable with someone else.
For sure. 100%. Right. Because, so much of medical culture is competitive, right? And we are taught to kind of put this armor on and never let your vulnerabilities or your weaknesses be seen. And then we're asking physicians to show up in these experiences and to be vulnerable and to show the things that are coming up for you and that are impacting you throughout your day. And it's difficult. And so beneficial. Right. And
Right,
so
right.
helpful.
And again, and every coach has done the work and gone through it, right? And most coaches, I think, become coaches because they were burnt out or had to do the work themselves, right? And then it helps them so much that they want to share with other people so they can really understand. So when you're sharing something with them, if they haven't been through that exact same thing, they can still understand and appreciate it. And they've been there too, and they're there for whatever shows up, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, not to kind of understate the point that as physicians, most of us are coaches throughout the day, right? Like, I coach patients every single day at work about kind of what is going on for them and their symptoms and their illnesses and the medications that they may or may not want to take. And so, we have a lot of training kind of going into this, and this is what I do on a daily basis with patients. And learning the coaching tools has actually significantly improved my ability to communicate with my patients, which has also been really helpful to me, right? Helping to kind of question, like, why are they so resistant? Like, what is going on for them in this moment? And I think that was always in the background of my work, but maybe now more than ever.
Right, right. That's so interesting. And actually, I just got off of a women's fellowship Zoom before we did this, and we were even talking about fear underlying. Actually, because I've been going through that, Desiderata. It was written in Max Ehrman in 1927, and we've been going through that line by line, and we take a whole discussion on each line. And the line we actually talked about this morning was, "Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself." And we talked about that, how a lot of times fear can be underlying what might come across as being stubborn or something else is really underlying that as fear. So
Yeah. And this is one of the big kind of players in what is going on in healthcare right now, is that I agree with you. Fear, confusion, lack of understanding of why doctors are saying and doing the things that we do is a big thing that kind of undermines the physician-patient relationship. And physicians don't have the time to really dig into all of those things because we're given many times these very short periods. You have to see a patient every 10 or 15 minutes. And I have been very intentional about my clinic not to let that happen. And at some point, somebody may force me to see patients in shorter intervals. Maybe they won't, but maybe they will. And, I think that is why your work is so important, because you're helping to give voice to the fact that we're human beings too. And we are also working under the constraints of the system. A lot of times doctors are put like as the face of healthcare, and all of the problems of healthcare are kind of put on the shoulders of doctors. And the truth is, we're functioning in the system just like the patients are. And a lot of times we're not happy with how things are going either.
Right, exactly, 100%. So leading into the next thing I wanted to talk about is I've heard you and other physicians say that upon finally settling in as an attending, which you all thought in medical school would be the pinnacle, that you instead found yourselves facing an arrival fallacy, thinking, is this all there is? You're going from room to room every day until I retire. And patients generally don't understand, thinking it would be great to be a doctor. And my friend Pat said something really insightful to me recently about the work I'm doing, and I don't think I've shared this with you yet. She said, you're giving a voice to doctors who are expected to be superhuman and not complain because of their salaries. Many people don't have empathy for them because they think a doctor's life would be the ultimate. And I thought that was really insightful when she said that. And she's a nurse and a lawyer. And as a PT, I've been privileged to work in many different settings over the course of my career: inpatient, outpatient, the NICU, home, schools, and rehab facilities. And if I had it or got burnt out, I could easily and did get another job. And I fully understand all the ways it is much more challenging for physicians. I could list a bunch of those reasons. And if I think back to my first job, if I wouldn't have had a reasonable options to leave, I can't even imagine how miserable I would have become. So like, I understand it. And I was wondering if you'd like here to speak to the importance of dreaming and goal setting and or limiting beliefs for physicians.
For sure. Yeah. And I will just add to what you were saying that there was just recently an article in The Economist, and the article was kind of a clickbaity title. It was like, why do doctors earn so much? And when I read the article, I was like, why? The article has nothing to do with the title, because what the article was really about was how doctors are fleeing healthcare. That healthcare workers are fleeing medicine at a rate of about 30%, which is significantly higher than people fleeing other areas of work. And so I think the title was intended to get you to click on it. And I think the point was, we're already at a shortage of healthcare professionals, and it's getting worse. And so, I think that just speaks to the point of, people have this impression that doctors are doing so well and they should just all be happy. And the truth is, if money was the key to happiness, we would not see the shortage of doctors. We would not be seeing the fleeing of medicine, the early retirement, all the focus that is currently being spent on how do I escape medicine. And so that was me, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was burned out before I found coaching, I was in the financial independence, retirement early movement. I was trying to escape medicine as fast as possible, squirreling away money and just trying to get out. And what I realized was this arrival fallacy that you were just talking about. There is not better than here. I love being a doctor. I did this for a reason. I love taking care of patients. I love the procedures that I do. And I don't have to escape medicine to be happy. What I needed was boundaries. What I needed was to learn that I don't have to say yes to every opportunity and everything that is asked of me. And the other point that you were just making is, I am a big fan of dreaming and goal setting. So the point here is that we as physicians have all of these big dreams and goals. We're working really hard to achieve them. First, I got to get into a good college, and then I got to get into medical school. And then I have to, find the perfect residency and get the fellowship. And so, yes, then you're always striving for the next thing. And then you get to the end of your training and you're like, oh, well, this is every day. until and if you were like, if you are a Gen Xer physician like me, you saw the 85-year-old gray haired physicians with canes coming to grand rounds when you were in your training. And you're thinking to yourself, am I doing this for the next, 50 years? Is that what is in this for me? And I think what I found was I didn't have to escape medicine. I just needed to set new goals for myself. I needed to make new plans, dream big dreams. And I have taken all of those goals and dreams, and as I've achieved them, found fulfillment that I didn't have before. And what that has meant to me is that I don't have to leave medicine. I am still a full-time practicing doctor who gets to show up to work more fulfilled. And I don't have to put all of my happiness into the I'm a doctor basket.
I love that. And we've spotlighted a couple other physicians in the Kevin MD articles, right, that speak to that. And I was hoping to do that by collaborating with the doctor so other doctors could see other things that they could do also. So thank you. And because you participated in that as well. So thank you. Okay, as we wind down, do you have any top tips for your colleagues from seasoned professionals to medical students or even those considering med school?
Yeah. I think we have touched on a lot of those big topics. So you started off saying, I think, the main thing here, vulnerability, learning to lean into the things that are uncomfortable. And vulnerability is not one thing. I think this is such an important point. People think like, oh, if I'm going to be vulnerable, I have to tell you everything. And there are gradations of vulnerability, right? And so you get to pick and choose who you're being vulnerable with, how much you're telling them, things like that. But allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you do not have to be like encased in armor. You can let little pieces of you come out into the world and see how people respond. And I have been so pleasantly surprised about how that has been received by other people, because all these things that I used to try to keep inside have been so well received by other people. So that's number one. And number two, what that leads to is connection and community, which was the other thing that you were talking about. Because another big part of my healing from physician burnout has been finding so many other people that have just been so supportive, people that I can talk to, be friends with, has been so, so helpful. And then number three is creating those goals and those dreams and things that you can continue to focus on, right? The end of your medical training is not the end. So finding other things that light you up and excite you and that you can continue working towards, so important.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing all of that. So how can our listeners get in touch with you, Michael?
Thank you so much. So they can find me at Better Physician Life Coaching, which is www.betterphysicianlife.com. They can go there and read the same blog posts that you were reading back in the day.
I highly recommend that.
I also have a podcast that I do with Dr. Arpita Gupta DePalma, which is called Doctors Living Deliberately. So you can find all of our episodes there. I have some freebies on the website. So a design your life worksheet where you can learn how to set goals for yourself and create the life that you want for yourself in 10, 15, 25 years. And actually a video on the arrival fallacy, which is something that you and I talked about today. And then people can just email me too, Michael@betterphysicianlife.com. That's how, you and I started chatting, and I'd love to hear from people.
Okay, that's terrific. Well, as you know, you can find me on LinkedIn. So please click like and subscribe. I've got many more great guests to come. So thanks again for being my guest today, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for you and all of the amazing things that you are accomplishing. I honestly could not be happier for you.
Well, thank you. So I thought I'd close by reading the article that I did about coaching, and as a thank you to you. In closing in that article, I had said, I guess it's not random that we met. It's how it was supposed to be. I don't think I have the words to fully express my gratitude for how you've helped me over the past few months. I'll say thank you from the bottom of my heart, hoping you can fully appreciate the sentiment behind it. See, I didn't plan on crying again, but thank you, Dr. Michael Hersh.
Thank you, Kim. It has been an honor and a privilege to get to know you over the last year.
Okay. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.